Good morning, David Howarth, Liberal Democrat MP for the Cambridgeshire area. It's really good to see you, and thank you for coming out this morning to see us in the Cambridge City Centre. David, in what ways should the state support people with mental health issues?
Well, first of all, good morning, Giles. It's very important to be here on this day and to express support for what is done for people with mental illnesses. But I suppose that the most important thing to say is that people with mental illnesses have an illness that can be, in many cases, treated successfully. So the first thing we should be doing for people with mental illnesses is helping them to come to terms with what their condition is and to improve it, and in many cases to cure it. So that's the first thing. And secondly, we should be helping them to recover in other ways, socially and in terms of employment, and to get back into society as best they can.
Yes, although, David, the question is arising amongst the mental health community that people are restricted and having incapacity benefit and so on restricted. I mean, is it a view of yours that enough money is spent on mental health in days like these, times like these?
Well, I think that the health service has not in the past put enough emphasis on mental health, that it's treated mental health as a sort of add-on, that money will be put towards mental health when that can be spared, and when times are tough it tends to be cut back. And also the way the system works tends to work against helping people with long-term conditions. So I think that the whole way in which the health service operates has to be changed, and that mental health shouldn't just be a priority when people talk about what they're doing, but also in what it does. I'm glad to see there are some improvements in mental health care and in treatment, but a lot more still needs to be done.
Is there enough spent on psychological therapies, talking therapies? I mean, all the services seem too few, and I mean, how many people are now allowed to actually see their CPN?
Well, it's absolutely right that in the past a lot of emphasis has been on rather simplistic drug treatments, but although in some cases drug treatments can be very helpful. So behavioural and talking therapies are very important. And I'm very happy to see that in the Cambridge area, for example, the local mental health trust is at last turning towards that sort of treatment and making sure that every GP in the city will have access to expert treatment and advice that they can draw upon. But you're absolutely right. In the past, there's been a tendency to concentrate on the easiest thing to do. But lots of evidence exists to say that we need a choice of therapies, a choice of treatments. Different things work for different people.
Where people are traumatised, affected by disability or whatever their mental health condition may be. I mean, now there is a view that 20 people in Cambridge are going to have to go back to work. How can this figure be brought out that 20 people need to, in fact, be found work when some people may, in certain circumstances, have a condition that may not allow them to do certain types of work?
Well, I think the benefit system is very, very crude in the way that it deals with people with mental illnesses. What we need is a system which is personalised, which takes into account precisely what it is that people can do and what they can't do. And often people with mental illnesses who are recovering from them find it okay to work on some days, not okay to work on others. And that needs to be respected and needs to be worked with, rather than having a very bureaucratic system that seems to work against people.
Well, exactly. That brings to my point about, another question. Why is society so at odds with each other? Would you say that people are more upset with the horrific news they hear each day? For example, in the newspapers, the media, the press, or even the internet?
Well, it's true that what we hear through the media often is just the worst things that are happening in the world, and it might be a way to get through that, not to listen to the media or read the newspapers as much. Although that's probably an odd thing to say when being interviewed on a television camera. But I think that we just need a balanced approach to what's happening. That there are some catastrophic things going on in the world. There are some terrible things happening. There are very bad things happening now in the financial system, which is going to worry a lot of people about their financial futures. But on the other hand, life goes on. Family life goes on. All the good things in life go on, and we should remember that too.
So within the community mental health community, David, are we, in your opinion, a society which value its members, all of its members?
I think we still have a very long way to go before you can say that we're a society that respects everybody both equally and sufficiently. And mental health, I think, is central to that debate. We need to be a much more caring society. We also need to be a society that respects people as individuals for who they are.
David, would you be lobbying Parliament and, you know, seeing in the House of Commons that the government is going to actually lobby and improve the mental health system and not make so many cutbacks, because it is a dire consequence to so many people struggling with so many difficulties?
Absolutely, it's very, very important that the government, when faced with financial difficulties, as it will be in the next few years, doesn't just look around for what it might think to be easier targets. And I'm very determined that mental health will stay at the top of the agenda, and the government will not get away with reducing expenditure in that area.
Because the government made it a top priority 7 years ago. However, we're now seeing cutbacks happening all the time. I mean, I am actually, quite very upset, and I think a lot of people that I talk to are upset with the Labour government breaking their promises.
Well, what they did was good on the level of documents and speeches, and they were saying the right things, and the right things are appearing in policy documents. But what hasn't happened for everybody, especially people in this part of the country, is a corresponding improvement in service. And that has got to happen. If we're taking mental health seriously, I think everyone agrees that is what we should be doing, including the government, then we should follow it up with actions.
Actions speak louder than words, David. Thank you so much for coming here today. Where are you going now?
I think at the moment I'm now going back to my office in Newmarket Road and having meetings there and signing letters and making phone calls, and then later in the day I'm going to the annual general meeting of the Citizens Advice Bureau, which of course is another important aspect of
yes.
the situation.
Yes.
People do need good advice when dealing with things like the difficulties, and as the economic situation worsens, there'll be more people who need advice, not fewer. So it's vital that the advice services are properly supported.
Good. Thank you very much, David. Well, thank you for joining us here today on Friday the 10th of October, World Mental Health Day. It's good to meet you again, and take care wherever you go.
Thank you very much.